I'm Squadron Leader Tim Barlow. I'm an RAF officer. I'm also the director and the coach of the RAF Spitfires Rugby 7 side, and this is the story of our home run. At 10 p.m. on the 24th of March 1944, 76 prisoners of war from many nations, but mostly RAF aircrew, escaped from the prison of war camp Stalag Luft III in Zagan, Poland. The escape was masterminded by Squadron Leader Roger Bushell, and the plan was for over 300 to escape, but only 76 did. 3 made home runs, 50 were murdered on Hitler's orders, and the rest returned to prison of war camps such as Colditz and Sachsenhausen. On the ride, we had some personal connections with people who were at the camp. Chris Pearson's uncle was part of the Long March and was a guest at Stalag Luft III. Some photographs that Chris Pearson had of his uncle from when he was in the camp that we wanted to try and recreate. It was also really special for us as a team to remind us of our journey. Fortunate enough to go to Zagan in Poland, where the camp was, and to take part in the anniversary celebrations, including the parade. We were joined by Air Commodore retired Charles Clark, a resident of Stalag Luft III, who was present during the Great Escape. Whilst talking with Charles, he explained that the aircrew didn't have much in the way of survival training. Now we have a dedicated school at RAF St Morgan. Sergeant David Thou, aka Bongo, took us through how to build covert fires, how to build shelters, and what sort of food some of the escapers might have had. We know that Squadron Leader Jimmy James made fires and shelters from having talked to him in person and also from his books. So it's really important for us to have the opportunity to build these covert fires and see if we could disappear without a trace like they did. For the shelters, we looked to find areas that, again, we could hide in, something that we could take down quickly, but something that would provide enough shelter to keep you out of the wind and the rain and maybe give you a couple of hours sleep and some rest before you went on your onward journey. RAF people go out across the world on operations, and to have those sorts of survival techniques in your back pocket could save your life and those of your colleagues. My plan was to make our own home run, which I'd envisaged in my head over the last 5 years, and finally, on the 75th anniversary, this came to fruition and was something that we could do in Charles Clark's lifetime. Our time in Poland, although short, was extremely humbling. I thought it poignant prior to our journey home to put ourselves in the shoes of the 76 and make our own escape, returning bicycles all the way back to Kent.
Known as Möhnes.
Squadron Leader Alex Blackstock, known as Big Al.
Squadron Leader Chris Pearson, otherwise known as Moonpig. Squadron Leader Tim Barlow, known as Snoozy.
Hi, I'm Rory Woods. I'm also known as Tupers.
Flight Lieutenant Nathan Jones, known as Badger Teeth.
It felt very special to be following in the footsteps in some respects, obviously not specifically in most cases, but the fact that you were honouring what they did and that you were doing it as a tribute to them. Obviously what we went through physically doesn't, pales into insignificance.
6 months plus of planning and everything that gone into it, and all the hard work to actually then get on your bike and start going. It's probably a preparation of your kit and everything, getting ready, getting your bike ready, but then mental focus.
Our first stop was at the School for Allied Airmen in Iwovo.
The kids are taught about the Great Escape and the Long March and various different things. Aircraft in the dining room, there's a whole wall dedicated to the history of the Great Escape. And
you had to go back outside, put all the wet kit back on, and on this occasion get back in the saddle.
One of our stops on day one was the Lipna barns, where the prisoners of war on the Long March were housed overnight.
Brought home for me what the guys who were doing the Long March probably would have gone through. Obviously theirs was a lot worse.
We had some good kit, some good thermal and waterproof kit, and obviously modern standard kit. It had been a pretty brutal day, but it was, this thing's really started. We are now on our way. We'd obviously crossed from Poland into Germany to sort of feel like it had finally really started, and we got day one out of the way. That was quite a good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was I'm pretty sure this was
one of the longest
yes,
days.
We did over 100 miles.
And the weather was rubbish again, wasn't it? There was a reason why we're the only cyclists for those first 3 days that we saw.
As you're going along, all I could stare at was the wind turbines in the direction, in the speed.
This was the toughest day for me.
Definitely.
I think, because there was fatigue from the first day. You were still so far from home, if you like, and then I think we did quite a lot of uphill that day.
There's a big headwind. There was that gnarly hill going into Colditz as well, right at the end, which was
Cobbled to boot.
Which was a good one for a leg there. It's just another special place to visit, isn't it, for an RAF perspective? Thinking about some of the stories there, some of the guys who were incarcerated, some of the escape attempts and stuff that they made, with the glider in the roof and what have you.
So we were amused by the number of escape attempts. I think the French, amazingly, sort of had 11 successes out of 11. The British record was a little bit poorer, it was about a 10%. So they tried about over 100 attempts. You can imagine that. Colditz was a definite highlight. Again, it's been sort of up there, having read stories about it as a kid, knowing that we were going there, but then finally seeing it. There was a lot of cobbled roads again on that day. Weirdly, so many parts of rural Germany were still cobbled, weren't they?
Yeah, we had a couple of punctures that day as well, didn't we?
Yes.
This is what it took 3 days. I think this was when my legs just started to figure out you better cycle. I'd rather cycle uphill all day and not into wind, just flat, with the wind in your face, just demoralizing.
I like the fact that the first few days the weather was really against us, because it tests you a little bit more, doesn't it? And with these sorts of things, one of the reasons for doing it is to try and get close to what they might have experienced, and I know we're a long way off, but you're some way there. And you need the fact that you just said that you're away from your support team, you're suddenly thinking, all right, crikey, you lose your 21st century stuff that you've got with you. Maybe the nav goes down or the phone runs out of battery, and you're suddenly then thinking, quite, what do I actually do if it goes horribly wrong here? And they must have felt like that almost the whole way they were going through their journeys. No support, completely by yourselves apart from the guys that you're with.
Yeah. We ended up in the woods.
Yeah, lots of woodwork stuff.
Yeah,
this was a good day actually, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
No rain.
Speak for yourself. I think that's when we hammered the pace. Remember, we had a lunch stop, probably threw for too much food down, and we tried to hammer the pace. Got through the woods, and afterwards, and throughout these sort of trips, if it was all smooth sailing, you wouldn't come away with anything like the same experience and the same sense of achievement, and obviously it wouldn't develop the teamwork in the same way. And it's moments like that when you're separated from your support team, when you're really not quite sure where you are, you're worried about sort of the time and how far you've still got to go. Dark. You've actually run out of track, and you're walking your bikes with no idea where the road starts again. So at the time it was a bit uncomfortable, but then afterwards it was really sort of gratifying that we got through it. None of us fell out, and we were able to laugh about it afterwards over a beer. Möhne Dam being such a significant landmark again in terms of the World War II history, particularly for the Air Force. That again was just fantastic to sort of finally be there, see it firsthand, and sort of have that moment in the morning sun just to sort of appreciate and consider what the guys who attacked it went through.
That Dam Busters raid were just unbelievable. The stats of how they performed it, and then looking at the dam and how high they were flying, and how accurate they would have had to have been,
and the losses they suffered were catastrophic.
So that was really poignant for me.
Met up with Addy from the Netherlands Army.
Especially being in the group, trying to keep up sometimes, you could feel your legs. But I think on the flip side, it was the group that then pulled you back in. So it wasn't really a place for me, it was just the way we worked as a team. I think that was good for us, just to work together, and I suppose it kind of echoes what everyone did as a team with the Great Escape and everything else that went on.
And I think as a group, not just the cyclists, you're a couple of days into it and away then for 10 days probably in total with all the anniversary celebrations. We'd really gelled as a team there with the film guys, with the support guys, so everyone knew kind of what to expect and when things were likely to happen, like Tupid's predicting that we needed to go sort of 50-60k or whatever before we need a good break, prepping all that, and it just started to work like clockwork, didn't it? It was really good. And the weather turned nice as well, didn't it?
So nice.
Rotterdam, the whole reason for going to Rotterdam was that was where Jimmy James crashed during the war and started his journey as a POW, escaping from Sachsenhausen and obviously the Great Escape Camp at Zagan.
But yeah, I think that day was just when it clicked in terms of the group and working well as a team. It just was it was really good. If you do like a 100-mile cycle, you plan for that, you do that cycle, and in the next few weeks you've got off. And that's what I was trying to get around to the guys at work. I was like, just try putting yourself doing that again, and then again, and then again. And I think that's when it dawned on people that you're trying to explain it to. was the day it just seemed to like click in terms of the peloton and everything.
Yeah.
We were, I think it was like, well, there was times where we were up to 40, 45 kilometres an hour because that mountain biker behind us stayed with us.
You look at the spirit of the RAF guys during the war, and you know, when they were incarcerated, going through difficult times, the spirit still lives on with the people who serve. You look at our teamwork together, and making sure that no one falls off the back of the pack when you're cycling. Yeah, completely different to being behind the wires of POW, but having a laugh and enjoying the hardship together is, I think a really key bit about serving in the forces, isn't it? And hopefully it will always remain like that. Arrived into Bruges, didn't we? And that's where we met Pritam. So obviously the relationship with Pritam and Calais Rugby, who the Spitfires have supported since 2011, and equally kind of been supported by them over in India when we've gone over and done a tour where we've coached the very underprivileged kids in places like Calcutta. But for us, it's given us that amazing experience of being able to go and impart your skills and your joy for a sport with kids who have nothing, and to have Pritam with us and see him obviously coming up through Calais Rugby as a young teenager, and now having the opportunity to study in Paris and come over and ride with us was brilliant.
So met him in 2011, and he was underprivileged, found the love of rugby, and then there we are 8 years later. He's doing a masters in Paris, playing for the local rugby club, just doing fantastically well. So that was really awesome, actually.
Dunkirk, that was, I don't know, that for me, Dunkirk felt like the end. I know that we finished in Kent, but that was kind of the bit where you knew that you'd made it.
And then we obviously got the channel, didn't we, and ended back up in Kent for the final leg from Capel of Fern, the Battle of Britain Memorial. Oh yeah, stunning.
I think it's really been a tour de force of linking up all these locations that mean quite a lot to our organisation, community, and as individuals as well. So. It's been an excellently worked trip, and well worth it from my perspective.
It's less about the destination than the journey. Do you find your legs were fairly conditioned to it? So it wasn't cumulative fatigue and every day was harder and harder. You'd almost gone past that point such that you could...
Yeah.
The body was completely and utterly conditioned to it, presumably.
To an extent, our legs were a little bit sore, but certainly the lungs and everything were fully functioning, and my fitness level for the next couple of weeks afterwards was probably so much higher. Cycling through the lovely Kent countryside, which
it's tough. That final day was pretty hilly and tough. It's not what you think about. We've obviously cycled it before when we were on the Brompton ride, but yeah, it's not what people think, is it?
From King's School, Canterbury, which is where Jimmy James went to school.
Yeah. That's where Mike Goody joined us, ex-Royal Air Force Regiment, who lost his leg in Afghanistan, and now he's a RAF Benevolent Fund ambassador.
The Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund has been there through thick and thin, supporting the welfare of RAF personnel and their families since 1919.
And then what a reception when we got into Faversham to the brewery, Shepherd Neame Brewery. They've been brilliant to us over the years with all their sponsorship, but the fact that they lined the little alleyway as we cycled in with all their employees. definitely given me the bug to think about more things like this, and know actually what you can achieve, because it's one of those things that can be a bit of a pipe dream. You think, oh yeah, that'd be quite good, but actually sometimes you just got to go for it. And then put on a lovely spread for lunch and some lovely speeches and more importantly a couple of pints of Spitfire. Always great.
I'm sure I wasn't alone. It was mixed emotions as well, because finishing was a great achievement, but I was also gutted that it was over.
For me personally, to be able to do a home run was something that I wanted to do whilst Charles was alive, to be able to show him that we still respect everything that he did and what he stood for, and to make it something that our youngsters can look at and learn from and never forget the hardship and the difficulties that he and his colleagues went through during World War II. You could definitely class Charles as an RAF legend. He's kept the legacy of what they did in the camp rolling on into the future. Personally, Charles has been a great friend and he's a remarkable man.